Hi everyone, it's Versha Sharma, the senior correspondent at NowThis News. We've got a very special stream, and we'll have multiple special streams all week. It's the Democratic National Convention happening, and we're going to be going live with a couple of the key speakers that are going to be speaking every night. So tonight we've got Michelle Obama, Senator Bernie Sanders, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who we just spoke to over on the Now This Politics account, if you want to go over and check out that live stream. And very shortly, we're going to be joined by Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, who was also a presidential candidate herself earlier this year, and she's going to give us a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on in NC this week. Give it a second. Thanks everybody for joining us, and do let us know in the comments if you have any questions. Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Versha. It's great to be on. Thank you. I got some special sunflowers.
I love the flowers. So how are you doing? Are you ready for tonight?
I really am. I'm really excited that we are doing this virtually. I think so many times it's hard for people to get to a convention, and now we're going to be featuring a lot of people during this convention, including tonight, that maybe wouldn't normally be there. I think that's cool. And I also think part of this is for someone that likes these conventions like I do, not everyone does, but you get to talk to people. There's issue forums during the day and things like that, but you do miss that camaraderie. So I've been trying my best. I have my own sign. I've got little meaningful signs. Tweet less, listen more.
That's good.
And then I even got, for solidarity, the aviators.
Oh, the aviators. That's great.
Yeah, I know you want me to take them off now. So anyway, I think that everyone's going to have to just deal with it in their own ways and kind of make it fun and watch it with their families and friends if you're in a COVID circle tonight, and figure out how you're going to do it, because it should be exciting, and it's on us to get the message out and make people understand exactly what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, my good friend, stand for. And people are gonna learn a lot of new things. Especially, I'm looking forward to Michelle, who's speaking a bit after I am, and Bernie tonight. And it just shows the caseage. It just shows that we are a big tent united party right now.
So for those of you who are tuning in, the Democratic National Convention is going to be all virtual this week because of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Originally, it was supposed to be in fellow Midwestern state and Wisconsin. And I think some people will be on the ground there, but most people like yourself will be addressing the convention virtually, and you'll be able to watch it on all platforms right here on the Now This News Instagram, as well as our Facebook, our Twitter, and our YouTube. So Senator, what can we expect from your speech tonight?
My focus is going to really be picking up where I left off. And as you all know, I announced in the middle of that blizzard in Minnesota with 4 inches of snow on my head. But then I ended a campaign where usually it's just a disaster when a campaign ends and you don't win. But for me, it was truly a moment of joy, and for our staff and everyone involved, because as I said, I could think of no better way to end than to join Joe's campaign. And I stood with him on that stage in Dallas in this incredibly hot room, and made the point that we need someone with competence, which he has. Barack Obama leaned on him. If anyone hasn't seen that video of the two of them together that was put out last month, they should. He leaned on him to help us get out of the last great downturn. Barack Obama leaned on him because of Joe Biden's sense of decency and goodness in a town where that old joke is, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. Well, Obama did get a dog, but he also had an incredible family, and then he also had a vice president that he could trust, that helped implement things and get things done. So I think you got that, but then you've got his great compassion. And I have my own story along those lines. One time, Vice President Biden came to Minnesota, did an event for me, and a guy had worked on it really hard, married to one of my best friends. And he ended up getting really sick right before the event. He got some virus. He died 2 days later. And see, there's a fly in
So it'll be this live.
Really a dramatic moment in my story. But anyway, he died and left 3 teenage girls. And when I called the vice president to thank him, I mentioned this. I said, my friend, this is so sad. She's a widow at a young age. Maybe you could write her a note. I'll give your stuff, the details. You could sign a note. He says, no, I want to call her. And a week later, no one knows her, right? Mm-hmm. She's driving home from her first day back at work, and it was a hard day. And she gets a phone call, and it's like a black line, and she answers it, and it's the Vice President of the United States. And he says, Kathleen, I've been through this. I lost my wife. And she starts to cry, and he goes on and tells her dumb things people say and good things they say and what she's going to have to deal with. And then he says, Kathleen, I want you to write my number down, my cell number, so you can call me. She goes, I'm driving. And he goes, I'll wait. You just pull over and write the number down. And she wrote it on her hand. And that's what he's like. And a lot of people have those stories. Why does it matter now? Because we need someone that actually has a heart for what America is going through. The young people out of work, people who had plans of what they were going to do with their lives after they got out of school. A lot of my daughter's friends, everything on hold. People who their grandma and grandpa are isolated in nursing homes or assisted living, and they can't even hug their loved ones. It's a pretty tough time right now, and he gets it. And he doesn't say what the president does when Trump hears that 157,000 people died a few weeks ago from COVID. He said to the reporter, it is what it is. Yeah. That's cold.
Yeah. And that was the quote word for word. So speaking of President Trump, he's actually in Minnesota right now. I think he just touched down not too shortly.
My husband's hometown. Yes.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. So in 2016, Hillary Clinton won Minnesota by, I think it was a 1.5% margin. It was pretty close. Obviously, Trump is investing a little bit in the state. He's campaigning there today. So what have you heard from people in Minnesota about how they're feeling about November and Trump versus Biden?
Well, first of all, our state has pretty had it with what's going on here and a divisive president. We have got a situation where, like every state, we're struggling with COVID years with the budget surplus and the like. And now our governor, who's doing everything he can, has had to basically spend that surplus. And like every other cities and the states across the country, we need help. And this president hasn't been willing to budge, even meet Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer halfway. He wasn't willing to do that. And so I think that you've got people who are concerned about that. You have rural areas that are hit. You have families, they don't know, is my child, what's going to happen? How are they going to learn next year, whether they're in school or not in school? How am I going to get childcare? And all the problems we had before the pandemic are simply magnified right now with income disparities and racial disparities. Frontline workers, essential workers, putting them at risk, themselves at risk all the time. Extraordinary things that they do. And then you have a president that does nothing but blame people. And I've been speaking to a bunch of the state conventions and the state breakfasts for this convention, and basically reminding them that he's the one back in 2016 at his own convention, Trump, he said, I alone can fix this. Those were his words. And now it's like the buck stops anywhere but here. He blames everyone. He blames testing for the increase in COVID. He blames Barack Obama, who got us out of the last downturn. He blames the Kingdom of Denmark. I'm going back now a few years. Here's my favorite one. He once blamed Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for cutting Trump out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. That is a true story. Google it. Nope.
I forgot about that one. That's true.
Yeah. And we care about that because, border state. And in fact, now, the other thing I was thinking with Canada is that Trump ran on isolationism. I didn't agree with it. He ran on it. And now we're also isolated that I cannot even get into my car and drive over the border to Canada because of the COVID issue.
Right.
And so I just think that people are in our state are really focused on the economy. They're worried about their kids. They're worried, as I said, about the seniors. And then they just they're tired of the anger and the divide. And they want someone decent. And they want to have someone where they turn the TV on and they don't have to turn it off. They may not agree with everything that Joe Biden said. Okay. But they know they'll be proud of him, just like they were of Barack and Michelle.
Now, for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm Varsha Sharma, senior correspondent, and NowThis. I'm here with Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's addressing...
Senior correspondent? That sounds like senior senator. That's a very senior thing, except you got to watch out. I was once accidentally introduced several times as Minnesota's big crowds. Senior, because people are nervous, senior citizen.
No. Yeah.
Like you don't want, you wanted to stick with the correspondent.
Right. Yes, exactly. So, you're gonna be addressing the DNC tonight on night one. If you guys aren't aware already, she'll be speaking on night one of the DNC. And I think one thing everybody's really concerned about right now are Trump's attacks on vote by mail. And you are in the Senate, you're the ranking member on the Senate Rules Committee, and I saw that you recently wrote a letter to the Postmaster General, and there were protesters outside his house this weekend because people are scared and worried and angry. So tell us, what is the latest with this?
There's been big developments on that front, and there was a lot of pressure. And that was actually a letter that included every single Democratic senator. We are united on this. And people write in, maybe they're doing it right now in your chat line, letters, so what letters? Well, that's just all part of pressure. That's when we put stuff on social media. We call people. And this is one of these cases. This is not the fault of Washington gridlock or people not working together. This is all on the Trump administration. He put his crony in, what I was focused on. Last week, he sends a letter to all the secretaries of states that says, hey, we know we've been giving you one rate on mail for ballots. We're going to tell you that if you use that rate, the bulk rate, you probably won't get there in time. So you're going to have to spend millions and millions more of money to be able to get your mail delivered on time of people's ballots. Why would you do that in the middle of a pandemic, except that you really don't want people to vote by mail? So what's happening right now, the big development is that Speaker Pelosi once again has shown the leadership that Donald Trump does not show, and she is calling the House back on an emergency basis, I think as early as Saturday, I don't have the date, and then they're going to vote for a bill that will set some standards, because it's not just ballots, it's also people's medication, people's documents. So they're going to do that, and we are pressuring Mitch McConnell to bring the Senate back, not only because of the postal issue, but also the money for testing and for state and local governments, and making sure my bill that passed the House that says you've got to help to make sure these elections work for everyone, that passes, because we will never forget that scene in Wisconsin where those voters, predominantly African Americans, standing in line in homemade masks and garbage bags in the rain, waiting just to cast their vote. 70 of them got coronavirus. Then on the other side of our Instagram split screen, you see Donald Trump voting with his mail-in ballot from the luxury of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the ballot that he ordered up from Palm Beach, Florida, in his slippers.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
It
is. But so you just look at that image, and people should have the same right to vote safely. And that's what a lot of this is tied into with the Postal Service. But I want to make clear it's not the same thing. And it's why we need the Senate to come back as well. But it is real action. Oh, and they're also going to have a hearing and they can subpoena him to come in. And that will also be important because he will have to testify under oath.
So what can people do who are worried about this?
I think the first of all is call every Republican, if you're in a state with Republican senators, if you have some Republican representatives in your state, even if they're not your own representative, I would really start there. Because this, as I said, it's just not one of those things where there's a divide in the Democratic Party. We're united. And so the pressure is on them to, one, come back to the negotiating table about the entire package, the HEROES Act, and then also to get them to support the post office in terms of funding. And, I personally think they should get rid of this guy. But what we need to do is, at the very least, put standards into law so they stop jerking around the people of America who simply want to mail a letter to their grandma or get their medications or not have to choose between their life and voting. I would rather put ballots in the mailbox than voters in the hospital.
Now let's talk about the most recent addition to the Biden ticket. The short list for vice president or his running mate was all women. And even before Biden announced his choice, we were seeing a lot of sexist attacks on the short list of so-called ambitious women or overly ambitious women.
Yay!
Exactly. That's something
that would not have this show here with the two of us if you were not ambitious.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's something that you've dealt with, I think, throughout your political career, certainly in your presidential campaign. And after he announced Senator Harris as his running mate, we also started to see racist attacks with birtherism 2.0. So how do you think the Democrats should respond to those attacks?
I think as we have, and I think one of the things that's unique that didn't happen in 2016 is that people were in shock, understandably, why making outrageous things, communicating that he wanted Russia to put dirt out on Hillary Clinton. We know his playbook. And one of our advantages, of course, is that most of America know his playbook. And so anticipating early, if you noticed, Emily's List, a lot of groups across the country put out the numbers, and I suffered from it myself, of how during the presidential campaign, Kamala and Elizabeth and I got hits that the men never got, and they would focus in on things that were trying to get at sexism. They were trying to hit us on things like, oh, you're dumb, or oh, you're mean, or oh, you are too ambitious. All of these things, and that's what they do, especially to women. And I'm glad that we got that out ahead of time. So I literally went on Fox News for my friend Kamala, who I'm very excited, by the way, is on the ticket. We grew to be close friends during the campaign when we were running against each other, which usually doesn't happen with people. And I went on Fox immediately after Donald Trump had called her the words we would expect, right? Nasty, angry. That's what he said in his first moment. Instead of just saying we welcome her to the race like normal leaders do, or like any leader should do, what does he do? He goes back to that trope, back to those lines. And I said, if I could pick adjectives for her, I would say tough, I would say strong, I would say experienced, and empathetic. And that's what America is seeing. And I think the launch has gone really well because we anticipated what he would do and what they would do. And there are no limits. So I think the most important thing is not to give ourselves a breathing room, which I think you saw Joe Biden do this week and we will do during this convention, to get a moment so people can get to know Kamala and get to know the person I know. And I think she's just going to be a tremendous vice president.
Now, as we wrap up this conversation, and thank you so much for joining us, I want to go back to your state. This is where a lot of the racial justice protests started this summer after the death of George Floyd at the end of May. So I know that the energy is still there on the ground. I know that protests are still going on across the country. What should people know about what's going on in Minnesota in this aftermath?
Sure, that's a great way to end, because this is something that shook the soul of Minnesota and the country. And the first thing that's going on is the case, the prosecution is going on. Keith Ellison has a case. He's a friend of mine, and I'm glad that he has a case and has doing a very good job, and it's continuing through. It's not going to go to trial probably until next year. Secondly, we are rebuilding in the areas that were the hardest hit. We have a lot of minority-owned businesses, and we're working as hard. We've been trying to get help from the Trump administration to no avail, but the state is stepping in and private businesses are stepping in, and that's been a really tough time, and we're doing everything we can to do that. The third piece of it is police reform. Minnesota did pass a very limited police reform bill. By the way, we're the only state in the country with one house is Democrat and one is Republican. But we passed a limited chokehold ban, something I really want to see nationally in a much bigger way. But the work that Corey and Kamala did, and I was a strong supporter of their bill, that's languishing right now in the U.S. Senate on Mitch McConnell's desk because he will not allow it to come up to a vote. So we're focused on that nationally, but state by state, there have been changes. And just in the name of George Floyd's family, the answer is not to hold the Bible up as a prop in front of a historic church after clearing out peaceful protesters like this president did. The answer is to heed the words of the Bible, to act justly.
National convention on night one. What else are you excited about for the rest of the week before we go?
Well, I am excited actually to hear all my friends there. We did a really fun thing with Corey, a group of us, and he and I just talked yesterday. Maybe just some of the presidential candidates got together for old time's sake. Mayor Pete and I have been getting along. We didn't kind of rehash some of the debates that we had. And anyway, so look forward to that.
I love that you specify that you've been getting along.
no, we did Stephen Colbert together. No, it's all good.
That's great.
You know,
No, I think
you did on a debate stage. It's all good.
that was one of the favorite storylines, I think, for people, the Midwestern disagreements that happen.
Disagreements. Yes, that's what we call them in the Midwest. All right.
Thank you so much again.
You.
All right. Bye.
Appreciate it. See you soon.
Bye.